Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and I just kind of have an FAQ, and this time they're kind of just all some questions that I've just kind of got recently from different players, a bunch about guilds, some actually about some other content creators in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which I thought was a great idea, and then just, some general stuff here. So, if you're new to the channel, FAQs are ideas that, people ask questions that is more than a YouTube comment, but not a full video itself. So, hopefully that, you guys enjoy, again, continually are enjoying the series. And first, before we get into all those questions, we need to give a huge shout out to the channel members. Thank you guys again for this support. I truly appreciate every single one of you. And guys, if you're interested in joining, there's a link in the description down below. Otherwise, it is free, right? It is free to you to hit that thumbs up button for a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments. Let me know your thoughts, guys. It helps boost the numbers, helps get this stuff more views on YouTube. So, let's get into the FAQ. So the first thing I want to mention here is the guild FAQ, which is right up here. So everybody always asks me, hey Phil, what kind of guild should I be looking for? And it's a guild you should grow with. And again, we've kind of got each Luke, right, progressing up. That you want to find a guild that you can grow with, that you can be with for a long period of time. You don't want to have to change guilds every 2 months. It's really beneficial for your account to be in a guild for a longer period of time because it gives you a better opportunity to grow with those players and they get to know your play style and you also build a rapport. And what I normally say is if you're looking for a guild, you want to land yourself in that 30 to 20th range in terms of overall GP. You don't want to be the highest galactic power player in your new guild because you probably could have gone larger. And you don't want to be the smallest GP player in your new guild because it's going to put a target on your back that if you miss tickets, you miss deployments, it puts a target on your back that this player isn't up to par with everybody else. It's kind of why I like to say you stay in the middle. And if you think about that concept, if you're a 4 million galactic power player, if you were in a guild completely of your peers, your guild would be 200 million GP. So just some food for thought. I'm not saying that if you're in that number one in your guild, it's time to leave, because that's not the case. But if you're looking for a new one, that's where you kind of get picky. But find a guild that you can grow with, that you can watch your account move together. And that's really important, especially as we get down into some of these other questions people had about guilds. And that's next one is working towards X. So I had a guild officer reach out and ask me, hey, I have some people in my guild who aren't really working towards, and I think it was Ki-Adi-Mundi. And, they're not working on their Shaak Ti clones for Ki-Adi-Mundi. Like, should I boot them? And I said, I really wouldn't. Because, one, I don't think Ki-Adi-Mundi is really that necessary. But, two, it really depends on what they're working on instead. So, and I think the Ki-Adi-Mundi case is kind of a harder example because I don't think Ki-Adi-Mundi is nearly as important as some other things in the game, like Wat Tambor or, say, Reva. So let's say it's Wat Tambor. You have somebody in your guild who's not willing to build Gear 12 Geonosians. Well, what are they working on instead? If their answer is, hey, I'm I'm a character away from starting a Galactic Legend ticket farm, okay, fine. I could stomach that. That you're at that end point where that would stop you from being able to get that GL. Yeah, by all means, get the Galactic Legend. Because that's going to help the guild in territory battles, territory wars. It's going to help you in all the other game modes that will then trickle into you being a better guild player. But if they're like, oh, I'm getting my Jawas up to Gear 12, well, no. Let's put that into Geonosians. With Inquisitors for Reva, if you're... I can't do Inquisitors right now. I'm building for Leviathan. Alright, I mean, it's not as ideal, but I can understand it. It'll help the guild in territory wars. It's going to help you in GAC. Okay, fine. Oh, you're building Starkiller or Aphra, where there's not quite as much guild benefit there. What are you really doing? So, I don't know if you guys kind of follow that mindset, but if you're doing something to help the guild, like a Galactic Legend like Jabba, where you're going to get extra combat missions done, and territory war defense and all these other things, that's, to me, it's not, and here's the and I'll say this, right, I'm going to interject and just say, if 40 players in your guild are like, I can't do that because I want to get Jabba, switch your focus a little bit. Maybe your guild isn't ready to be worrying about Riva yet. And on the flip side, if you're in a really large guild and you're the only one not working towards Riva, maybe you need to think about, why aren't you doing that? If everybody else in your guild is ready to do that, what's keeping you from making that a possibility? So I did want to bring that up in, kind of both ways, that sometimes it's one player who needs to get on board, and other times it's somebody coming to a realization that the guild isn't ready for that transition yet. So hopefully that kind of answers the question there of, I really wouldn't be booting players if they're not working for something, as long as they've got a reasonable, I don't want to say excuse, but a reasonable, a legitimate reason why they can't do it at that period of time. Okay, the next thing is, when you're looking at accounts for, recruiting, look at more than GP. And this goes both ways. You're looking for a new guild, you're looking for, a replacement account, look at more than GP. I can tell you that when my guild's looking, we're looking for 8 million Galactic Power players with Galactic Legends and stuff. Understand that when I say look at more than GP, that the 8 million is already us taking over 1 million Galactic Power off of our average. So we do try to look at, hey, do you have good mods? Do you have good characters? And with guilds, it's even more important. If you're trying to find a guild that's getting a lot of Third Sister shards, a lot of Riva shards, take a look at how many Grand Inquisitors they have. Okay, maybe you want to join a Territory War guild. See what their Territory War win-loss rate is. Look at stuff beyond just Galactic Power, because you'll see some guilds that have a lot of Galactic Power that don't do a heck of a lot with it. So just bear that in mind. All right, aligning your focus with guilds. So this is very important. This kind of goes along with that, like farming towards X, but a little bit differently. Of, if you're someone who really cares about territory battles, don't join a guild that's territory war focused. And vice versa. If you're a territory war focused player, don't join a guild that says they're TB focused. Or maybe you find a guild that's kind of a healthy mix between the two. And if you're a guild officer, don't be afraid to ask your guild members, hey, what do you guys care more about? Do we care more about TB? Do we care more about territory wars? Asking that question will get your guild so much more benefit, because players will want to participate in those game modes that they're enjoying. If they're like, I really don't care about territory wars, then you don't need to worry about, making anything crazy. And if they're like, hey, we want to win every single territory war, then you put more effort into it. And then finally, this is more so for players who are always looking for guilds. Like, don't go looking at a $100 store with a $20 budget. If you're 5 million Galactic Power, don't be demanding getting into a guild that's like 350 million, 400 million. Like, know your place. Don't go shopping in a $100 store with that $20 budget. You've got to know what you can realistically get into, and you will be a lot more successful in finding a guild if you go in with a realistic, hey, I'm 5 million, would love to get into a 300 million power guild. Like, that's just, a couple of things that I think would be really good for you guys to think about. Again, just some questions I've been getting a lot recently about guilds and, what to do. So the next question I got had to do with content creators and who I kind of have watched in my Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes career. So I would say that, and we'll kind of go for a character for them. So obviously, we've got Stormtrooper here, for our Grand Admiral Arnold. Arnold's the biggest creator in this game. He's probably the one that I've watched the most of. I think he's the most entertaining. I think, he's one that I turn on for entertainment. When I first really started watching content for content's sake, Arnold was that one that, I gravitated towards, and he's still the one. I mean, he's the biggest guy. He's the biggest. He has great production quality, so a lot of respect for him. So got Stormtrooper here for him. But I'd say the first creator that I truly remember was actually Smithy D, which was back in the AAT raid days. I was actually in a guild with Smithy D, for those of you who've been playing for a long period of time. So Smithy D was kind of the first guy I remember, creating Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes content way back in the day. Man, this is, that is dating myself. So if you remember Smithy D, let me know in the comments. But the next one I really got a lot from was Sir Gorgeous. And I used Sir Gorgeous for the General Skywalker event, but also for the Night Sister cheese for phases 3 and 4 of the heroic Sith raid. For those of you who really weren't as in tune, right, with some of these cheese things you would do, you would use Mother Talzin, Old Daka, Asajj, and Night Sister Initiate, and Jedi Knight Anakin. And you could once you'd get Initiate to die, and then you would just auto basic in phase 3 of the Sith raid, and then you could get into phase 4 and potentially solo if you had all the gear and stuff, because you would just gain so much turn meter. You'd create this endless turn meter loop with Anakin constantly taking bonus turns, Asajj, Daka, and Talzin gaining turn meter. It was crazy. You would 1000% could auto basic that raid. So he was the one that I learned that from. So that was, one of my earlier ones of coming back into the game. I used that to good effect and, help my guild out a lot. And then I would say other, big creator, obviously Cubs fan Han, who's, not really creating for this game anymore, which is unfortunate. But Cubs was a huge part of, Galaxy of Heroes for a long time. So, watched him and with Galactic Legends, Heinze a lot in Rogue Actions. That was another one that kind of, it really looked forward to them. I still would watch Rogue Actions with Gridden, who had some great Galactic Legend guides. And now with Rambam even and his love for Mace Windu. So, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention those guys. Rambam definitely more been a member of Heinze's group for a long time, but really starting to create on his own. But, Rogue Actions, one of those episodes that I really, watch a lot. So, that's just something I like to think about. In terms of, kind of like the newer creators or, some of the, like, I don't know, smaller guys, whatever you want to call us. One of the, I want to give a huge shout out to Nooch. So I've got the Jabba thing because he was starting his Jabba free-to-play farming guide. And then they announced this whole new raid thing. But, yeah, so Nooch is somebody that I remember when I first started watching him, he was definitely, like, really, more newer into the content creating, and it was great. I thought that he had a lot of good points. It was interesting to kind of see somebody playing in a really small account like that, and it not be what I think, like, Arnold has done it, but I feel that Nooch has that, I think Nooch has a little bit more knowledge of that because he's not playing on this massive whale account as well. So one negative I have about Arnold is that, like, the free-to-play account it's a free-to-play account that someone who doesn't have to worry about it being free-to-play, right? That, if his main account was free-to-play, it's a lot different. And that's the way that, I find Nooch to be a lot of times where, he's got some really good, interesting things to do with some of those free-to-play accounts. So I always have appreciated his content. And obviously we've done a collab together, so he gets special shout-outs. But another guy that I really, really liked was It's Just Ian way back in the day. So It's Just Ian was someone, Qui-Gon Jinn. So he was a really good creator. He was very off meta. I don't know that he's still creating content anymore, but I think he still plays. But It's Just Ian was somebody who I learned a lot from, especially I would say in the early off meta stuff. He had a higher end account, but not quite like, he was always a little bit behind, and so it was easier for me to kind of copy some of the stuff that he was doing on his streams. And along those same lines, huge shout to Xaereth, who's probably the one that I would say that, Arnold is Xaereth, I've learned a lot of my off-meta counters, particularly like the Lord Vader stuff with Fennec, and some of the other things like Xaereth, between his alt account and his main account, I've learned a lot from. And I think that if I had to say that I hoped I played like somebody in GAC, it would definitely be Xaereth. He's someone I have a lot of respect for in terms of how good he is at GAC. So I would say that Xaereth and Arnold are kind of the two that I've watched the most, where Arnold is more the entertainer and Xaereth kind of like, I don't know if I want to say like it's going to class, but I could put Arnold on in the background, look up, and, there's something crazy going on. But with Xaereth, I want to watch what he's doing for the sake of getting better. And I think that's something that he's really good at. And then, of course, you'd be remiss if we didn't talk about AP Gaines and his love for Cup. AP's, I've got a lot of respect for AP. I think he's done, some really good stuff. He's got, fantastic farming guides and things. I would say that I've watched him. I've kind of gone in like phases where it really just depends on what's been going on. I know he kind of, yeah, it's like me, when you have life going on, you're not always creating. But yeah, he's definitely someone who I've watched a good bit. I don't always agree with all of his stuff personally. Like the all ships defense to me, I always felt like it's, how do I say this? Like, it works when you're playing against people who just have no clue how to deal with ships. But the second you come across somebody who has any half-decent ships, like, that defense just crumbles. And I find that I win a lot more of my GACs when I can force my opponent to have to play characters. So that is just something, again, I'm not trying to, like, nitpick these guys or say that they're all, like, I have the utmost respect for so many content creators. I mean, there's a bunch of other guys. Like, you got Calvin Awesome, who does some really great things. Sanjita does some awesome stuff. There's a lot of other content creators that I just don't have the time to name every single one. But, like you think Playbook and Lakota, who I was on the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes trivia with, there are two guys who I wasn't quite as familiar with them as, some of these other guys. And, you've learned more as you're a creator that you're like, man, like, I didn't really know that these other people were around because this community is just so big. But yeah, and then, I don't know, guys, I guess the last thing I would say, if you're still watching, you get to hear, Fat Phil humble brag a little bit. But somebody asked if there was one thing that sets me apart from, like, what do I think is my biggest skill in Galaxy of Heroes? And what I would say is it's my ability to pivot. And what I mean by pivot is I can switch between farming something and, like, finish. So, for example, when I finished Leviathan, if I just go to Sith Empire real quick, like, I finished Leviathan, and then it was right back into Inquisitors, I believe. And then I was sitting there, and I was like, okay, I want to get Galactic Legends Rey, but GLA is on the horizon, so now I need to be thinking about that. And so I think the one thing I've always had in my back pocket is, one, I can sit here and look at these number ones knowing that I can take any single one of these Galactic Legends to Relic 8 right now. But that I don't want to do that because I know that I need to do this for other things, or that I want to hold on to those resources. And I think that my ability to pivot comes from, one, always having a plan that when I do this, I'm going to do this next. And also coming from this, almost kind of bleeding in from, like, my personal life of where, I'm kind of always thinking about, like, I want to be saving for something in case X happens or in case Y happens. So I'd say that's the one thing that has my greatest skill in this game, is my ability to pivot not only in the middle of a farm, but immediately after one and just hit the ground running. Because if you waste you think, like, I say waste, but if you spend a week not sure of what to farm and you're just kind of, like, going around, that's a week of time that you're not getting back. And a week can be a long time in Galaxy of Heroes, because you think if you miss a week and then you're not available for that Executor event, you could be waiting a month. Or you could be, you could be waiting a month for that Executor. Or a Journey Guide character, you could be waiting a couple of months before they're back around, like the Grand Inquisitor. So just understand that that ability to pivot is so important, because there are certain times where it does make a big difference. And other times where, okay, it's not a big deal, but sometimes it's a huge deal. So anyway, that's the end of this FAQ. Let me know your guys' thoughts. FAQs are always something fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I kind of rambled for a while, but appreciate all your guys' continued support. If you're still watching, Wampa is king in the comments. You guys know the drill. It's been a while since we've done some of that stuff, so we've got to get back into doing the fun things here. Obviously, all the praise to our glorious king sitting on his lofty Relic 8 throne. That's been a little bit. I need to do that at the beginning now, I guess. Got to bring that back and see how many people I can get in the comments pissed off again. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'll see you on the next video. May the force be with you. Cheers.